Okay, now I begin once again. So Gregory, I invite you at any time you need to go to my live and then ask to share the to get into. Okay, this talk will be in English with Gregory Leroy, uh, a dealer and curator of photography and art, but basically also in Latinamerican photography specialist. He's in Paris, so now we will begin. Let's see how it works. There you are. Hi, Lynn. How are you? So,
Here
hi,
I am.
Gregory. You hear me fine?
How are you?
Fine. So we see if we can talk about all this that we have suggested to do.
Yes,
So
tell me.
you can read the questions down on the bottom.
On the bottom, I see the name of a few people who are looking at the
Okay.
video.
It could
Yeah.
be that's in some time or some moment they make a question.
Okay.
So if they make a question and you want to answer, you can go on.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
So basically, I have make a presentation of you that you are a curator and art dealer, but not only in photo or only in photography.
Only in photography. Well, curator, mostly photography. Sorry, only photography. Dealer, sometimes in painting, but that's not the the bulk of my activity. I'm really specializing in Latin American photography, as you know.
Yes, I know, but as you have put art, I am asking. So the
Well,
people that are
I
there,
I sometimes have a few paintings to sell. Yes, yes, but
okay.
only Latin American.
So we have made some questions to talk about,
Okay.
and I would like that you explain how you select the photos and what kind of photos do you like, or if you have some photos for your own collection.
Okay, my own collection. Yes, I do. Okay, so why Latin America? As you know, or you might not know, my wife is Venezuelan, and that was probably the main reason when I started to get into Latin American photography. We've been married for almost 20 years. We used to go a lot to Caracas to visit her parents, and I still travel there at least once a year. So I got really interested in the photography scene over there. There was some amazing photographers working in Venezuela from the 40s to today. And I realized that most of the photographers were absolutely unknown in Europe and in the US. At the time, I was working at Sotheby's as in the auction house business, and I was specializing in photography in the auction house. Um, and I wanted to, you know, introduce the collectors and the museums in Europe and the US to Latin American photography. Um, Except for a few very famous Mexican photographers like Alvarez Bravo or a bit younger Graciela Iturbide, most of the museum had almost nothing in terms of Latin American photography in their collection. And I thought it was an opportunity to, to be the only one to propose this type of work. And then, by chance, I started traveling a lot to Mexico, and I've specialized a lot in Mexican photography for the last 10 years now. Um, so yeah, so that's why Latin America, because I was the only one to do it, except for Spencer Throckmorton in New York, who's my dear colleague and friend. We are almost the two only galleries, I mean, outside of Latin America, who work mostly with Latin American material.
Okay. So I have just talked to Spencer, and I understand that Norberto has buy and has sold also some photos to you, and he will
Yes.
share us in a minute.
Okay.
So we have talked a lot with also with Norberto, but the world has changed. So one of the question is, how do you see in the future the market for the art and especially for the photos?
I'm not worried at all. Um, Most of my clients, as you know, Karim, are museums. Um, they're not going to go away. I think we might have a crisis in the art world, but it's going to affect mostly, sadly, young artists and I would say young gallery. Um, I I am more of an antiquarian of photography. I sell photographs from artists that are already well known, established. Most of them are dead. I mean, I don't think I have any living artists for sale. And the museums still have to buy a lot of these artists because they don't have it in their collection. So I'm not personally worried. Um, but if I was a gallery working with, mid-career artists, I could be worried. Yes.
Okay. And what kind of photos or photograms you want to you have send me some photos to show it in this live, and I
Yes.
see a beautiful photogram. You know, I like very especially the photograms. I think photograms has a plus on over the photo.
Yeah. Well, because photograms are unique objects. That's the real definition of a photograph. It's a unique object, and usually photography is not unique. It's a multiple. So that's probably why you like a photograph. Is that you can sell it for way more price because that's a unique piece. It makes it more like a painting. Um, the photographs I sent you are from the very beginning of photography in Latin America to some probably 70s or 80s photographs. Um, One of the reasons why photography has such an appeal to me is that it's like a time machine. And cities like Caracas or Mexico has changed so much that they're barely unrecognizable. And to be able to travel 150 years ago and see what Caracas looked like in the 1860s, or what Mexico looked like in the 1870s is for me invaluable. And I'm probably one of the few dealers who works with 19th and 20th century material. Usually the market are a bit separated. And there's few collectors today who collect from the very beginning of photography to today. It's too big. You have to probably specialize in a small area of collection. But I really like old photographs. They're difficult to sell at the moment because they're extremely fragile. And a 19th century photography, especially if it's an important one and you've paid a lot of money, uh, is something you don't want to put on the wall because light would damage it. And there's less and less people who wants to buy photographs and put it in a drawer. I understand that people wants to put it on the wall. So 19th century photography is a niche in the niche of Latin American photography, and it's mostly for museum or for my collection because I really enjoy them.
Now, the other question that I have proposed to you is, why do you like, especially Latin America? Which because your wife, or because you have see a niche in the market of Latin American photography, like Trent
Oh,
Morton?
I've seen a niche. I've seen a market that I could, really corner in a way. And then my job is to source these photographs, so to travel a lot. And I really enjoy traveling to Latin America. I'm desperate at the moment because I cannot fly anywhere, and I'm looking forward to go, to Mexico as soon as possible. Yes, so it's pleasant to travel to Mexico or to other country over there. People are nice, and there's a lot of great artists who worked in Latin America during the 20th century, from Europe and from the proper countries of America Latina. That's something interesting, and you know it, is that a surprisingly large proportion of the great Latin American photographers were immigrants,
Yes,
like your
I
father.
I would say the 90 or the 90%.
Yeah, in Brazil, it's, you know, almost all of them were born outside of Brazil. I mean, the great modernists of Brazil. In Caracas, you have, you know, Barbara Brownlee and Paolo Gasparini are probably the two most famous photographers from the second part of the 20th century. Brownlee was born in Switzerland and Gasparini is Italian. In Mexico, it's the same. Yeah, it's interesting. And then there's some great schools, and we thought that it's not that Latin American photography is completely separated, because, you know, they knew what was going on in the US and they knew what was going on in Europe, and there was a lot of interchange between artists in Mexico and France, for example. Cartier-Bresson, when he traveled to Mexico, was changed by Mexico, and you could say the same by Western. Western is sometimes considered one of the greatest, or the greatest photographer of the 20th century. Cartier-Bresson could be the other name you mentioned for that. And they both worked in Mexico, and both came out of Mexico and returned to US or France completely changed. So there's an amazing amount of great artists. They're not well known. Some of the archive are still in Mexico or in Venezuela or, you know, in every country, or in Argentina, and it's a gold mine, basically.
You know that André Cartes, his brother,
Yes.
has been living in Argentina, and in the 60s he has had a big exhibition here in the Argentina.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Of course. But, you know,
So he was
also,
here, but I have not seen photos from him from Argentina. I don't know.
if surprisingly, I think I choose most of the photographs I sent you are from people who were born, most of them outside of Latin America. I sent you a portrait of Anita Brenner by Tina Bodotti, an Italian. Then I sent you Barbara Brownlee, a Cationa, Hungarian woman who moved to Mexico. Yeah, it would be a book to write about what Latin American photography gained from immigration, and especially from Jewish immigration in Latin America. But that's another subject. Yeah, so I collect. I have three main collections. I collect the great Venezuelan photographers, especially early views of Caracas, because that's extremely rare. Caracas was not a very rich city. There was very few commercial photographers in Caracas in the 19th century. It was less visited than Mexico, Buenos Aires, or even Lima. So, and on top of that, the climate of Caracas is absolutely terrible for all photographs. You know that all photographs is made of albumen. Albumen is egg white. So with heat and humidity, all these old photographs are fading to the point of being completely worthless. So when you find something good about Caracas in the 19th century, it's really a treat and a treasure. So I have a collection of photographs of Caracas. I have a collection of photographs of Mexico. Obviously, I try to keep once in a while a good photographs for myself, and and not sell it. And my last collection is about indigenous people of the Americas, South Americas mostly, and I love the first photographs of the Amazonian Indians.
You have uploaded recently in Instagram too. One was a guy with the leg that it was cut.
Ah,
That was on Amazonia, no?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You remember the photo?
Have you seen the photograph I posted recently about these Indians in 1943? And a magazine from Rio de Janeiro sent a plane to fly over the village, and they had never seen a plane. And the whole men of the village came out with their bow and arrow and tried to shoot down the plane. And those photographs are absolutely amazing. I really, I love it. That's actually one of the main issues of being a dealer, is that if you're a dealer and you love photography, sometimes it's very difficult to sell because you want to keep them for yourself. And, you know, you have to balance the income for the family and your taste and love for photography. And I've had sometimes to sell photographs that I regret selling. I'm desperate sometimes to sell a print that I know I will never find back.
You have not met my father, no?
No.
No. You know that he has begun to collect photos in the 70s.
Well, there was a legend in Paris 10 years ago that your father had the best Baldus album.
Yes, all
for some reason that he found in Buenos Aires, and everybody was talking about this Baldus album in Buenos Aires.
Yeah,
and I know it was your father, right?
He has sold it many years ago. When I have traveled a lot to New York before I have met you, sometimes I have taken some albums and photos from the collection from my father and sold it to different collectors in the state. That was in the 90s.
90s, yeah.
Yes. So
your father started collecting photography.
I still have. I have inherited 28,000 photos from my father, from his collection, and only 4,000 from his own vintage copies. So the collection was larger than his own
work.
Work, yes. But well, he has dedicated himself to buy and sell photo machines and also photos. But his economical situation was always very worst in Argentina, so he has sold a lot. Many people from Japan has come to buy to him once in a year, and they have known that they have had these things. Yes.
And you still have 19th century photography, or mostly 20th century?
Not too much, because as you say, the humidity in the home from my father. You have some photos from my father right now, and if you look closer, you will see that I don't know if they have or not some fungus, but many of the photos has been because the humidity be destroyed. Not the negatives, but and he has not has the money to keep his collection in a good way to protect them.
Yeah.
So
there's no way to protect photography from humidity. I mean, you have to have a climate control room, and that's the only way. And
yes.
Except for a few museums, it was extremely rare to have that in the 70s or 80s.
Yes. So, and you also make evaluation and from archives and all kind of stuff behind your work as a dealer.
Well, I sold a lot of archive, and I'm still selling archive. I just I cannot name the photographer, but I just sold the archive of a very important Latin American photographer to the Getty Museums a couple of months ago. it's very interesting to sell all archives to museums because I'm sure that the work is going to be protected, not only the prints but the negatives. It's extremely difficult to store negatives, um, and there's no interest in showing them. So a museum um, will not buy the negatives; they will accept to take care of them. You know, you don't sell the negatives. But on the long term, if you're a research center, it's extremely important to have the whole body of work of the artist. And so now when I'm selling archive, I'm trying to make the museum accept to take care of the negative, to digitalize everything and make it available on at least online to researchers all over the world.
Yes. And what you have mentioned, it's also important. You have been with Marsona in Berlin. I don't know if you have
Yeah.
talked to him a little more, but
Yeah.
one of the problems that many photographer has, the archive is very big, and normally the family, the kids, they have their own business and they don't
Mm-hmm.
are interested to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
So he has put together a foundation in Poland to take care of the archives,
Yeah.
and I think that that's a good point. And in the
But
future, I guess more museums and more foundation and people will try to keep and as you say, digitalize and see what in
yeah,
in
but
the
Karim, the problem with negative um, is that it's extremely time consuming. Um, the body of a photographer, let's say, is 1,000 prints, the body of work of a photographer. But he chooses these 1,000 prints from 40,000 negatives.
that's
So
exactly
the
the
museum is going to get 40,000 negatives, of which only 1,000 were deemed good enough to be printed. But still, they have to take care of everything. They have to digitalize everything, and they have to store everything in a safe way. So it's quite an investment for a museum to take charge of a large amount of negative.
yes, I
But
know.
they have to do it.
And I'm not we have not talked too much, but I have a question that I have not written to you. Do you
Mm-hmm.
care on the name of the photographer, or do you select the photos because you like them?
No, there's a lot of photographs in my collection that are anonymous, especially the 19th century photography in Latin America. It's extremely rare to know who is the photographer, but I love them anyway. And I always assume that at some point I'll, I'll, I'll find the name of the photographer. So yeah, I collect as a collector. I don't necessarily look at the name of the photographer. As a dealer, it's always easier to sell photographs by a famous photographer. But
Yes, of
it's
course. So, do you want that we show some photos and you talk about the photos?
please, please.
Okay, so let's see how we do this.
I don't know.
Here you have the first one.
Ah, okay. Yolanda Andrade. That's a print I was supposed to show in New York at the APAD
I,
fair this April. And as you know, the fair was canceled. Um, so I'm going to show it at Paris Photo in November. She is a Mexican photographer, probably in her late 60s. And this photograph is from the late 70s, if I remember well. And I really like the mask this guy is wearing. That's why I put it on my Instagram recently. I did a whole series of mask photographs for obvious reasons. Um, she's probably the only living photographer I'm working with at the moment. And actually, it's pleasant to have someone alive to talk to.
Well, let's go to the other one. I'm sorry, but I cannot erase my face.
Don't worry. It's the famous view of the studio of Barragán in Mexico City by Armando Salas, Portugal. Armando is a photographer I absolutely love, and maybe you know Armando Hijo. I don't know if you know him, and if you don't, you should, because you have both great photographer as father, and you're running the archive both, and you deal with the same issues and problems. I'm working a lot with the Armando Hijo, who is the son of Armando Salas Portugal. Armando Salas Portugal was a very good friend of Barragan, so he's mostly known for the architectural photography. They've been published pretty much everywhere. He has published many books on Barragan houses. But he was also a very interesting experimental photographer. And yeah, that's one of the photographers I'm really happy to work with.
Which he has died when?
He died probably 20 years ago.
20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first photographs are from the 40s, and he worked until the 80s.
Let's go
Yeah.
here.
So that's Anita Brenner by Tina Modotti. And this photograph is very important to me because one of the first great collection I worked with in Mexico was the archive of Anita Brenner. Anita Brenner was an American woman who moved to Mexico in the early 1920s. She became very good friend with Edward Weston, with Tina Modotti, and she hired Weston to take photographs for a book about Mexican folk arts she was publishing. And most of the great Mexican Edward Weston photographs were made for her. And she had an archive that had over 400 vintage Western and Modottis, which is obviously a treasure. And he asked me to evaluate the collection and eventually sell it, which we did.
Okay. I want to mention, and I will mention it also in Spanish. When we finish with the photos, anybody who wants to make a question to Gregory, please write it down. If you write it in Spanish and translate it to him. Así
No,
que si alguien quiere hacer,
I can read Spanish, but I cannot answer in Spanish. So I'll answer
okay,
in
si
English.
alguien quiere hacer una pregunta, escribe en castellano y después lo traducimos y vamos a ver cómo lo podemos manejar. Okay, here you have a reading.
That's Eva Sulzer. Eva Sulzer was a Swiss woman. She worked in Mexico with photography only a couple of years. She was the lover of Wolfgang Paalen, another great Mexican surrealist painter. And this print is amazingly rare. I showed it at Zonamaco Photo in Mexico in February and sold it immediately. And I could have said it 20 times because every museum wanted that. But sadly, I had one.
Which was the name? Because I have not...
Eva Sulzer.
Eva Sulzer. Okay.
Yeah, well, okay. This is a very famous photograph by Kati Orna. Kati Orna was a Hungarian who started photography in Hungary, then moved to Spain during the Spanish Revolution. After the Civil War, or during the Civil War, she had to move back to Paris. And from there, when the Nazi invaded France, she took one of the last boats to Mexico. She spent the whole rest of her life in Mexico City, so she's mostly considered a Mexican photographer. But with this, European, in this case, Eastern European background, that you can feel in the photography, I guess. This image is the cover of the catalog of her show at Jeu de Paume that was probably 7-8 years ago.
To the people, as I don't say, I don't see the complete photo. It's cut. I see it cut. It. I don't know how you see it, but I have published it on Instagram. So
I see it cut too. I see it cut too.
Okay, if somebody wants to see it completely, they can go to the Instagram and see it completely after that. Okay, here you have the other one. Cut again.
This is also that's a photograph that I would not like to sell because there's only one vintage print of that. It's Barbara Brondley in Caracas in 71, 72. Barbara Brondley published a book called named Sistema Nervioso that is probably one of the greatest Latin American photo books of the 20th century. She passed away, I would say 13, 14 years ago. And I had the chance to meet her a couple of years before that. She was an old lady. No one had ever taken any interest in her photography, but I had discovered the book and I loved it. And I went to her house in Caracas and bought a large bulk of her vintage prints. And I'm resisting selling it for the moment. So this is in my personal collection.
You have mentioned photo books. I know my father has had photo books, and it's very important for some dealers to have photo books, because the photo books are especially important not only to see the author of some photos, because in this period, you know, they have even not put a stamp or the name, and you can buy sometimes photos that you don't know the author, but if you have the book, it's very important, like something where you can go to see it. No, you collect photo books?
I do. Some of them are now very expensive, obviously, and extremely rare. As for photography, most of the big city of Latin America climate is not good for paper, so some of the books are in bad condition. But when you find a good one, it's great. And there's a lot of the photographers I love that I discovered through their books, obviously, because there was no publication, no museum interested in them. So it's mostly through books that I discovered a lot of these people.
The photogram?
So Emilio Amero. Emilio Amero was a Mexican painter, a muralist painter from the generation of Siqueiros and Diego Rivera. And in the 30s, and only in the 30s, he worked with photography. This photogram is one of his first photogram. It's from 1940, and we had it at Paris Photo this year, and it was sold to an American museum. So you'll be able to see it quickly on the wall, I hope. As I told you already, what I loved about photogram is that it's a unique object. There's few photographs that are unique. Daguerreotype is, which also I love, and photogram, and makes the object even more valuable.
You want to explain how a photogram is done? Because I have explained it in Spanish, because I have been working with my father.
A photogram is a photography without a camera. Basically, you put the paper in the darkroom directly. You put on the paper some object that you can see clearly on these photograms, and then you put light on the paper. You expose the paper, and you will get the shadow of the object or objects that you put on the paper. And it's not, as you don't have a negative, you cannot reprint it. So you just have the one print you did directly in the lab.
Yes, you know that many people has contacted me in the past. I have, I have. Are you familiar with Jeffrey Batchen?
Jeffrey?
Batchen.
No, I don't know him. Who is
He
he?
is from New Zealand,
Okay.
and he has made a beautiful book. It was the first book that I have. They have asked me about photograms for my father. It's the name is Cameraless Photography.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful book. It was 5 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
Well, here we have the nude. I hope that Instagram doesn't cut us.
Okay. It's a very beautiful image. Again by Emilio Amero from 1932. Amero is one of the is like a unique avant-garde artist in photography for the Latin Americans. It's very unusual. It doesn't look like anything else that was done either in France or the US or even in Mexico. And most of the prints are unique like this one.
You know that in the collection from my father, when I have inherited, all
Mm-hmm.
the nude photos has been separated
Okay.
because I don't know why he don't wanted that my mother see them.
Okay.
He has collected nude photos, and I have some still
Okay. So
very
new photos
beautiful
is
one.
not from him.
No. He has never made nude photos, but
Okay.
he has bought and collected them.
And you know why he never made nude photos?
I
Do you know why he never made nude photos?
no.
No. Okay.
In all the negatives that I have go over with a friend that is looking on this life, Lucas Filemi. We have
Mm-hmm.
scanned with two other friends practically 50,000 photos from my father
Wow.
in a medium resolution. So,
Okay.
and we have put it together. Throckmorton has given me the address of Artbase. I have shown it the other day. So I have
Mm-hmm.
everything organized. If you want to see how many photos I have from the obelisk or from Florida Street, I can show it to you. But I have not find any nude photos, even not from my mother.
Well, probably he didn't like the intimacy with the model that is necessary.
Yes. So here you have another one. It's probably the same author.
Okay, so this print is interesting. It's the uh, Pirámide de Teotihuacan by Edward Weston. I've had at least three prints of the same image, but this one was so much more beautiful that we priced it, I think, 5 times more than the other one. This is a platinum print, and you know how valuable platinum is. It's probably the best printing process in photography. It will last forever, and you have a richness in the colors that is absolutely great. We had it in Paris Photo 2 years ago, sold it to great collection, and this is one of the things that I could not afford for myself, sadly, but that's one of the reasons I love photography, this type of image and in this type of prints. Okay, that's especially for the Mexican, this image. I don't know if any Mexican is looking. This is Reforma
Yeah, I
Avenue,
know.
La Glorieta de Colón, in 1909. Um,
That's
when I was
Polanco,
telling
no?
you about photography being a time machine, I was thinking about these photographs because if you know Mexico City today, it's, my God, it has changed a lot, and these photographs is in my personal collection, and I'm also not really in a hurry to sell it.
I like the lights and the shadows. We have Argentine photographer. I don't know if you are familiar with Juan Di Sandro.
No, no, I don't know him.
Juan Di Sandro was a photo reporter from a newspaper, La Nación here, and he has made beautiful prints and photos by night with the same like this La Reforma.
Your father did some great ones too in the
I have
50s,
separated
right?
the because Alexis and La Riviere has asked me one day to show him what I have from Buenos Aires by night,
Yeah,
and they have not bought
great
nothing,
images.
but I have them here. Yes.
Yeah, they're great images. They're great
Yes.
images.
Well, it's cut again.
Well, it's good. It's Paolo Gasparini, one of my favorite photographers. Paolo is in his mid 80s, still traveling a lot, still taking some photographs, and probably the greatest photographer in Venezuela for the last 40 years. And actually one of the best everywhere, because every print he makes is amazing. Okay, another time machine. This is Caracas, the very center of Caracas in the 1870s. And also, if you know Caracas today, it's quite mind-blowing to see what it looked like 140 years ago.
I have invited Ela Cisneros to come to the talk, but I don't see her. But I don't know if she has prints from Caracas. I don't know really.
No, and I don't. She's mostly into more contemporary photography. I don't know if she's
She likes subjective
collecting
photography.
old photographs.
Yeah, she likes subjective photographies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have 50 minutes more. I don't know if somebody wants to make a question to Gregory so he can answer.
And they would appear down, no?
It should be down, yes, if somebody wants
Okay. I'm gonna have a cigarette in the meantime, okay?
I have a question.
Tell me.
You are not very familiar with Argentine photographers.
I'm familiar with Horacio and your
Coppola.
father, basically. That's for some reason. I keep going to the same places, and obviously for family reason, Caracas and Mexico also, because I have a lot of clients there. And Buenos Aires is so far away, my dear, that it's a long, long way to go spend a week looking for photographs over there. But yeah, I should do it, and I hope to do it once.
Well, I have talked in these days with somebody about some archives, and I will send you later the information. Some good friends from my father.
I love archive because I love to look into boxes and find the great stuff. And okay, ojos antropológicos. At the moment, you can't, because there's no foundation taking care of his work. But he's alive, and it's still a work in progress in a way. But I will let you know. I think a few museums are looking into his work. I sold a lot of his photographs to the MoMA in New York, so you can check the MoMA website. And also, the Reina Sofia in Madrid has some photographs of him. But there's no website with all his photographs at the moment. It will happen soon.
So, if somebody has a question to do, we have some minutes more.
I have to go cooking soon, my dear. It's late already.
I will show you something.
Okay, please.
Here you have vintage photo from Bolivia.
Ah, that's nice. I love that.
Indians.
Okay, well. Yes, you're right again, Jos Antropológicos. There hasn't been many books about Venezuelan photography. Maria Teresa Bulton published at least 3 that are really interesting. But there's no website, for example, from a museum in Venezuela that gives you a lot of example of Venezuelan photographers. There's no photography museum in Venezuela, so it's difficult to get the books. Check the Maria Teresa Bulton books. They're interesting and historical.
Is this familiar to you?
I love it. I love it.
You have one or not?
No, I don't.
Ricardo Sanso. I think you have.
Yeah. But I don't have this one. It's not this one that you sent me. This I have this one.
Okay.
We will show it in Paris Photo.
And this you don't have.
This one I don't have. No.
Well, this is completely unknown. The name is Juan Bequis. This was from the forum group. You have seen this portfolio or not?
No. I have only I have some portfolio, but it's not complete.
It's not complete. Okay. And I guess the forum portfolio. I guess that Alexis and La Riviere has one. I don't know. I have still one of them, but it's in New York.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Here you have this Jose Costa.
Yeah, this is all great. This is all great.
This is Max Jacobi. You know Max Jacobi?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He died in Germany. And this is Rodolfo Osterman.
Yeah. No, but those are all the great photographers of Argentina.
Yes. There are more. This is the living room from my father, and there is my father. This is Max Jacobi. There is a painting from my father. All the photo books. So, okay. So if nobody has any question for Gregory, I have enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed?
I did. It was pleasant. It was pleasant.
It's a good idea to do this kind of stuff in these days and to show around. I am not so sure, like you, that the Paris Photo will happen again.
Let's be optimistic.
Yeah, I am optimistic. I would like to travel.
You know, Karim, I think it's going to happen. I'm not sure that many people are going to travel from outside Europe for Paris Photo, but I'm pretty confident it's going to happen.
Yes.
How many people will be able to travel from the US and from Argentina is another question.
Well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
We are here completely isolated. I don't know how is the situation there in France. We are still locked down, no?
No, we got out of lockdown this morning, Thursday.
Oh, okay.
And in Paris, I don't have a garden like you to, lie in my chair during the afternoon. So
I can walk here. At least I can walk.
Yeah. And this has been my view. I have my little balcony with some flowers and, but this has been my view for the last 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah. So thank you a lot and talk to you soon, I hope.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gregory. And
thank you.
We stay in contact, okay?
We do.